Hello, students. All right, ladies and gentlemen, today we are going to be doing a little lab activity to hopefully illustrate for you the types of graphs that can be produced based on population growth and enable you to interpret those graphs or look at those graphs and be able to distinguish between the two of the types of population growth we have discussed in class this week. So, make sure you have turned in your book to the lab activity. This activity is in two parts today. So I'm going to give you some basic instructions for part one, and then give you some basic instructions for part two, and then you're off and running on your own. So let's look at part one first. The question in the problem reads, what type of growth will a population experience if there is nothing to control it? We've talked about this in class, so look back in your notes. Uncontrolled population growth. What kind of growth do you think will be experienced in this case? And come up with a hypothesis. So pause me now while you write your hypothesis. All right, you should have a pretty good idea of what type of growth will occur, and you could describe it in a couple different ways. But right now, you're going to illustrate it with your lab activity, part one. I want to try to explain the instructions here for you in case there's any uncertainty as to what you need to do. It says on day one, there are two organisms. So in your observation section, and we're on this page of your lab, and so you're going to be recording observations here under observations. You're going to start with 2 for day one, because we're going to assume that the organisms that are reproducing sexually, which means you need a mommy and a daddy. So you start off with 2. And the next step reads, assume that each day their population doubles. Now, what does that mean? Well, it doesn't mean you're just adding 2 every day. No. It means the population is multiplied by 2 every day. So on the second day, you will take the first day's population and multiply it by 2. On the third day, you're going to take the second day's population and multiply it by 2. You're going to continue to do that for 10 days. Once you have all of those numbers for the population, then what you're going to do is plot that data, plot those dots on the graph below your observations. Plotting all of those dots will give you 10 dots on that graph, and then you're going to connect those dots with a line. Your objective here is to draw a line graph. Now, I'm not going to show you what it looks like because I want you to draw it yourself and see what it looks like, and then use your notes to help you write your conclusion. So that is what you will do for part one. Now, you can either pause me now and complete part one, or just continue to listen to the instructions for part two. So I'm just going to continue on here. So if you turn the page to part two, you will see the new problem here reads, what type of growth will a population experience if there is something to control it? So something a little bit different is going on here in part two of this lab. Let me explain. It begins with the same step one. You're going to use the same information as the whole part one of this lab. But look at what the next step says. This time, however, assume that any time the population grows larger than 200, whenever that might be, predators move in and eat all of the organisms over the carrying capacity of 200. And then it says any remaining population continues to double each day. So what are you going to do? What do you do in part 2 here? Well, you're going to do exactly the same thing, except whenever your answer, whenever the population exceeds or goes over 200, if that happens, you're not going to write down any number over 200 because predators are going to come in and gobble up any critters if there are any over 200. So the greatest number you will achieve in part 2 for population will be 200 because the critters will come in and eat anything more than that. All right, I think I've given you enough information here to help you complete your lab activity for today. Take your time, be careful with your numbers. You have 2 hypotheses to write, you have 2 sets of data to determine, and you've got 2 graphs to draw. Once you are finished with all of that work, make sure you have written your conclusions. And if you have any time remaining, you can use your time to study for tomorrow's quiz. Don't forget, use your topic help to help you study. Play the review games, take the practice quiz as many times as you want to prepare for tomorrow. And if you have any questions, hey, just ask Mr. Skirpst. He'll be happy to help you out. And so until later, I'm going to say for now, bye-bye.